Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Worth Your Time, Worth Your Money, an ongoing segment where I look at the opening hours of new and upcoming games. Now we're doing something a little bit different today. We're looking at a game called Hotel Infinity. It's VR, as you can probably see, and it's not Steam. I'm actually pretty allergic to leaving the Steam infrastructure just because it's such a good fix-all for everything gaming, right? I do play VR occasionally, even though I'm prone to motion sickness. I find it to be one of the most innovative, boiling pots, melting pots, whatever you want to call it, cooking grounds of unusual gameplay. But obviously it's not without its issues, right? There are the barrier to entry for cost and hardware. The hardware in itself is still being realized. So like I'm on a Quest 3 now, but I had a Quest 2 before, and only a couple of years between each iterative release, and the hardware is always quite expensive. But it is one of those things. If you want to stay on the tip of the spear, it's an expensive undertaking. But before I even just get into this game in full, something I'm very impressed about, all this footage that I've captured, which it's not going to be great, right? Because it's lower resolution, nature of two render screens. It's also a game that's native to the Quest 3 in this instance. That's what I'm running it on. I think there's a PSVR version, but it's self-contained, right? Much like the Batman game, which we covered a year ago when I got it. As in, it doesn't need, it's not Steam native. It doesn't need like an actual robust computer to run it. It can all be run internally in that headset. And it's just it's just a goggle thing. It's very small, very lightweight compared to some of the older stuff. So much so to the point that the game can be run and self-contained or within the headset. I managed to record locally onto this, and then the recordings upload onto like a cloud, and I can download that onto my computer for edit. And again, it's still, it's got faults, but the lower resolution, there's vignetting on one side because it's only capturing one eye. But what I'm sort of trying to champion is it's the space, the VR space has taken quite a few great strides into at least lowering certain barriers to entry. So, capturing it wasn't that hard. Actually, it was quite easy to set up in, a morning. And this is one of these things, I could take this over to my mate's house. I could bring it round to the family for Christmas and go, here's this headset that I've got in my backpack. It's all self-contained. It runs itself. You don't need a computer or anything like that. Off you go. Because anyone that knows anything about VR and that has actually tried it knows that you can never fully understand the experience on flat screen. It's just one of those things you really have to put the headset on. Anyway, a little bit of preamble, a little bit of setup, because I don't come back to VR that often because, again, the releases are few and far between. They're overpriced a lot of the time. They're very tech demo. Like, I enjoy the space, but it's an expensive hobby and I really don't have that play money. But occasionally, I'll dip my toe. So for my part, as a flat screen pleb, here's my brief look at Hotel Infinity. It's doing some really interesting stuff. I got into it because the pitch, or at least the way that I saw it, it was sort of dealing with, Euclidean three-dimensional traditional spaces, but with the headset. I feel like this is untapped real estate in so much gaming. Why do you just copy everything else and make it all one-to-one real when you've got essentially a simulation engine? You can do all sorts of unusual stuff, and it's kind of rare to see that sort of gimmick. So that's what got me in. It's not as trippy as I thought it was going to be. It does some clever stuff. The core of what makes this game tick really is playing it at room scale. So I went into one of my spare storage rooms, right? It still needed a bit of space. You'll see occasionally the barrier come up in the recording, me clipping the edge of it. But essentially like a 2 meter by 2 meter space, which is a empty floored bedroom. Good luck, honestly, most people finding that kind of free space anywhere. I struggled. And it kind of cramps you into that area, going around in circles in a way. You can see it in the footage. It explains it a little bit better, or I hope it does. I hope it's apparent. So you're exploring this hotel, but you're kind of generally rotating about a center point, and it does play with the idea of, you go around a corner, and once you turn that right angle back on itself, it changes the space. Maybe you go through a door or you just turn a corridor, and it doesn't make sense. However, it's still graspable because it tethers you to this general 2x2 rotational headspace. It's, again, I'm trying my best to explain it. So it explores these unusual portals and and angles and turning corners and having different geometry there. It's not scary or any horror or anything like that, though a good length of the beginning is finding your room, which is 1408, and I think that's more of a nod than anything. And it's cool, it's interesting, and that's why I gave it a go and why I'm sharing it with you. It's a very clever way to handle the locomotion problem with VR, even if you do have some space to move around in. I mean, generally speaking, I gravitate towards cockpit type games where you sit perfectly still, in a fighter or whatever. One of my favorite VR games ever is Star Wars Squadrons. I feel that addresses the sickness component also as someone who gets sick, but I can do dogfights and barrel rolls in that game and not feel crook at all. But yeah, and honestly, that's the main gimmick, the main hook with this. It's cool, the hotel, and when I finally made it to my room and I got to open up my luggage and just have a look around, there's a nice little room that I've earned here, it was fun. But again, there's not really a realized narrative or anything like that. And as far as puzzles go, it's light spatial reasoning. It's less about a game where you get to apply your ability to solve problems and more of a tech demo showcase. That's what it really does feel like, right? It's more interested in leading you to opening this double door that portals to another direction, and that being the wow factor, as opposed to, the puzzle of opening the double door. So it's less of a game and more of a marvel at what can be done. There are some actually pretty cool, breathtaking moments, like I got an elevator system working, and it is very of that old school turn of the century hotel elevator, very cramped. Like you feel cramped. You feel like you're pulling your shoulders in a lot of the way it's constructed. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it works. It adds to a certain immersion. The fact that I feel like I'm wiggling around in my chair as I talk, but like there's parts where you're winding down wending corridors, taking tight turns, and it's all very much, if it was a real space, it's like if you were in a loading screen from an Uncharted game where you're squeezing through a rock face, that sort of thing. You feel your body cramping up, not in a stressful way, but because you're trying to navigate these little corridors. And I don't know, it kind of almost adds a immersive impulse. But yeah, there's a point where you're going up one of those very shoulder width passenger elevators and you can look out through the grate, and again there's a forced perspective because you're essentially in this little cupboard elevator looking out, so you have limited view, and on all of that I think works to the immersion in the moment, right, as opposed to emerging from the Fallout vault and having the whole world open for all to see, right? This kind of being jammed in a closet and looking through an almost keyhole has its own level, and it reminds me even of doing like the Batman VR Batcave thing way back in the birth of PSVR 1 or whatever, where you unlock the secret Batcave and you go down and you can sort of, as you descend through the elevator, see it all opening out. So it has a bit of spectacle and it has an interesting idea, and it's meted out some other interesting ways of like doing the spatial transit with the what do you call them, like the Penrose steps or whatever. There is a point where you're going, I found myself going down a winding fire escape stairwell, and you could see the stairs going down, but it was very clever that once the last sort of spoke on the handrail went past the stairs, I could watch it in real time where it would switch from stairs to flat ground, and yet you descended a floor. So you never actually go downstairs. You never have to surmount that, but you're always looking forward at the stairs going down. And when you turn the corner, you're always walking on the flat. It's very clever. But how much of a game is there? Like, honestly, I was happy to just dip my toes, have a look, be impressed with the, again, tech demo. I feel more like an investor being pitched, going, hey, this is what we could put in a cool game. And that's what it felt like, right? I played an hour or two, pitch meeting. I'll probably not play it again because as a game, it's not ultra compelling. I'm not trying to throw shade or be mean or anything like that. So like it was an impressive way to show off VR. It would be a great thing to show other people, go, hey, this is what VR can do. But I think most people, especially without like a curiosity driven tolerance, which is, I'm in there dissecting it as a, dare I say, like a pseudo game reviewer. So I probably spent more time. I think a lot of people would actually go, that's cool. And I'm bored after about 15 minutes, right? It depends how much of that tourist spectacle of walking through set pieces. It's not even set pieces, it's walking through tech demo snippets, how much that will actually sustain you, because at the end of the day, it is mostly just that one core concept of rotating around. Like, it'd be awesome to have like a third person camera recording someone playing this for an hour in their living room, walking around in circles over and over again within a very strict 2 meter by 2 meter area. Anyway, look, I just thought I'd share it. It's a little bit out of season, a bit unusual. You know, we're getting into holidays and award seasons and all that sort of stuff. So we do have a bunch of releases coming out next week, but I think we might slow down a bit over December. But it was one of those things. Curiosity got the better of me. So I don't know. I don't know if I'd recommend this to anyone outside of someone that's like particularly rabid about this genre and this type of game. But the truth is they're probably already into it. This is more me, you know, stepping over the other side of VR and bringing back some updates for you, the normies, the flat screeners, and saying, hey, this is what they're doing with VR these days. And that's why I was even, you know, kind of interested in the Quest 3 self-contained unit component. I think that's so impressive. And like I said, it had a launch title, this Batman game, which is really good. And I really do need to go back and play that. See, now that's much more compelling. Not to take shots at this game, it's a bit unfair. That was the MetaQuest launch, essentially AAA title they put everything into. Of course it's going to be the best, but it is compelling, right? There's story, there's gameplay, there's, you know, be the Batman. So if you ever did pick up a Quest 3 or whatever, I'm pretty sure they still ship with that. I don't know. Don't hold me to it, but that's how it was when I picked it up. Anyway, look, I don't mean to waffle, but I find VR fascinating, and occasionally I'll dip my toes to see what's going on and bring you some updates. Hotel Infinity, interesting stuff going on here. Is it a game? That's up to you. But I'm still glad that I had a look at it, if only to put it up on this channel and show it to other people and see what VR's up to at the moment. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.